She agreed to be the CEO's fake fiancé for New Year's Eve. But at midnight, he whispered, "I have to kiss you." She agreed to be the CEO's fake fiancé for one night, a perfect lie for New Year's Eve. No feelings, no kisses, no complications, just appearances. But as the countdown began and the room filled with cheers, he stepped closer. The music faded. The world paused. And at midnight, he leaned in and whispered something that was never part of the deal. "I have to kiss you." In that moment, she realized this was never just an act. Some lies are dangerous, and some kisses change everything when the year turns. Before we continue, if you enjoy touching and inspiring stories like this one, make sure to subscribe to the channel and leave a like. Now let's get back to the story. "You don't belong on this stage." The words cut through the ballroom like a dropped glass. Amelia Frost froze mid-step, the soft champagne silk of her gown whispering against the marble floor as hundreds of eyes turned toward her. Crystal chandeliers glowed overhead. Phones hovered, discreet but hungry. The New Year's Eve charity gala at the Harrington Hotel had been designed for donors, board members, and polished power couples, not for a young woman standing alone with a borrowed invitation and a past she hadn't quite outrun. She felt it instantly, that familiar heat behind the eyes, the old reflex to apologize for existing. The man who'd spoken, one of the trustees, red-faced and important, was already regretting his volume, though not his sentiment. He leaned closer, lowering his voice far too late. "This area is reserved." "I assume you misunderstood." Around them, murmurs rippled. Amelia caught fragments. "Who is she? Isn't that the girl from the foundation issue?" "I heard she was dismissed." A whisper of scandal, thin but persistent, clung to her like cold air. She tightened her fingers around the small silver object in her clutch, a delicate snowflake pendant on a fine chain. Her grandmother's. She always carried it when courage felt thin. "I was invited," Amelia said. Her voice stayed steady, even as her pulse raced. "By the events coordinator." The trustee's smile didn't reach his eyes. Then perhaps she made a mistake. A mistake. Amelia knew that word. It had followed her for months, since a leaked email thread had painted her as careless with donor data. An accusation quietly retracted, but never publicly corrected. In circles like this, silence was verdict enough. She stepped back, the humiliation pressing in. And that was when the room shifted. Not loudly, not dramatically, just enough for people to sense it. Theodore Kane stood at the edge of the crowd. A black tuxedo, cut with surgical precision, posture relaxed but unmistakably in command. CEO of Kane Industries, reluctant philanthropist. A man known for ending conversations with a look he'd been watching. The trustee noticed him too late. "Theodore," the man began, relief flooding his face. "We were just—" "She's with me," Theodore said. No raise of voice, no explanation, just a statement that rearranged the room. Amelia turned, startled. Their eyes met, his dark and steady, hers wide with questions she didn't dare ask. He offered his arm, not as a grand gesture, but as a certainty. "Come on," he murmured, low enough for only her. "Before someone else decides who belongs where." She hesitated for half a breath. Then she took his arm. The murmurs swelled, reshaped themselves. Curiosity replaced judgment. The trustee smiled too broadly and melted away. Phones dipped, then lifted again, recalibrating the story. They walked. Only when they reached the quieter edge of the ballroom did Amelia speak. "Thank you," she said, "but I think you may have just made things worse for yourself." The corner of his mouth twitched. "I tend to survive." Up close, he smelled faintly of cedar and winter citrus. His bow tie sat perfectly straight. His expression, though calm, held something sharper beneath. Calculation. Maybe. Or urgency. "I didn't ask for a rescue," Amelia added. Dignity mattered to her. It always had. "I know," he said. "I asked for your cooperation." That made her look at him properly. A server passed with trays of champagne. Theodore took 2 flutes, handing one to her. She accepted out of reflex, grateful for something to do with her hands. The bubbles tickled her nose. "Drink," he said. "It helps people assume things." She almost laughed. Almost. They moved toward a tall cocktail table draped in white linen. A small plate of canapes sat between them, smoked salmon on rye, neat and unassuming. Amelia took one, more to ground herself than from hunger. The first bite was warm, comforting. Bread and familiarity. A reminder that she was still a person, not a rumor. "Why me?" she asked quietly. The music swelled behind them, a string quartet working its way through something festive and safe. Theodore watched the crowd as he spoke. "Because the board thinks I'm cold, untethered. Because my mother has decided this is the year I embarrass the family by turning 40 alone. And because," he finally looked at her, "I need a fiancé by midnight." Amelia choked on her champagne. She covered it quickly, coughing into her napkin. "I'm sorry, what?" "A temporary one," he clarified. "Very temporary." She stared. "You don't even know me." "I know enough," he said. "You were cleared, quietly, too quietly. I know you lost your job over something you didn't do. I know you don't sell stories, even when it would help. And I know," his gaze lingered on her hands as they tightened around the clutch, "that you keep something precious close when you're nervous." Her fingers closed around the pendant instinctively. "This is insane," she said. "Yes," he agreed, "but useful." A laugh bubbled out of her before she could stop it, soft, surprised, and entirely inappropriate. She pressed her lips together, but he caught it. His eyes warmed, just a fraction. "There would be rules," he went on. "One night, public appearances, no interviews, no physical expectations." "None?" she asked, eyebrow lifting. "None," he said. "Then after a beat?" "Within reason." She studied him, the authority, the restraint, the faint crease between his brows that suggested he was more tired than arrogant. "And what do I get?" she asked. He didn't hesitate. "Protection, access, and," his voice lowered, "a public apology without calling it one." The weight of that settled between them. Around them, the countdown clock for the midnight toast flickered onto the screens. 40 minutes to the new year. Amelia looked down at the half-eaten canapé, then back at Theodore Kane, CEO, savior, potential disaster. She lifted her champagne flute. "One night," she said, "no lies after midnight." His glass touched hers with a soft chime. "Agreed," he said. Across the room, someone raised a camera, and Theodore's hand, warm, steady, closed gently over Amelia's bare fingers just as the music shifted and the lights dimmed. She didn't pull away. Not yet. From the corner of the ballroom, a woman with sharp eyes and a familiar smile watched them closely, already drafting the version of the story she planned to release before midnight. By the time the orchestra shifted into a brighter tempo, the room had already decided what Amelia Frost was to Theodore Kane. Fiancée. The word traveled faster than truth ever did. Amelia felt it in the way people leaned closer when they passed, in the quick glances at her left hand, in the sudden warmth of smiles that had been sharp only minutes before. Theodore's hand remained lightly at her back, not possessive, not distant, considered. "Relax your shoulders," he murmured without turning his head. "You look like you're preparing for cross-examination." She exhaled. "I've had practice." That earned him a soft huff of laughter. It surprised them both. They paused near a high table as a server approached with small porcelain bowls, winter squash soup, steam curling upward. Amelia hadn't realized how hungry she was until the scent reached her. Theodore accepted 2 bowls without asking. "Eat," he said, handing her one. "It makes people believe you're comfortable." "I'm sensing a theme," she replied. "Appearances are a language," he said. "Tonight, we're fluent." The soup was velvety, lightly sweet. Amelia closed her eyes for a second as she took the first spoonful. It reminded her of Sundays at her grandmother's. Simple meals, no audience. The snowflake pendant warmed against her skin, tucked just below her collarbone. Across the room, she felt it again, that sensation of being watched. The woman stood near the champagne tower, silver gown sharp as a blade. Late 40s, maybe? Elegant, controlled. She laughed at something a donor said, then glanced over, quick, assessing. Her smile didn't falter. "Who's that?" Amelia asked quietly. Theodore's jaw tightened, just enough to notice. "Margaret Hale," he said, "board member, strategic advisor. She doesn't like surprises." "Do you?" Amelia asked. He looked at her. Really looked. "Only the honest ones." Margaret began moving through the crowd, unhurried, inevitable. "Well," Amelia said, setting her bowl down, "she's coming." "I know." Margaret stopped in front of them, eyes flicking between their faces. "Theodore," she said warmly, "you've been busy." "Margaret," he replied, "you've met Amelia." "Have I?" Margaret's gaze sharpened. "I think I'd remember." Amelia offered her hand. "We haven't met properly." Margaret's grip was firm, measuring. "How fortunate. Congratulations." "Thank you," Amelia said. "We didn't expect to announce it tonight." A beat. Margaret smiled wider. "Of course not." She glanced at Amelia's hand again. "No ring?" The question landed cleanly. Amelia felt the absence like a spotlight. Theodore reached into his inner jacket pocket. For half a breath, Amelia panicked, until he pressed something cool into her palm beneath the table. The snowflake pendant slipped free, catching the light. "It's not traditional," Theodore said smoothly, lifting Amelia's hand so the delicate silver rested against her skin. "But it belonged to her grandmother." Margaret's eyes lingered on the pendant. Something unreadable passed across her face. "How sentimental," she said. "My grandmother believed snowflakes mattered," Amelia added, finding her footing. "No two alike. Easy to dismiss, impossible to replace." Margaret studied her. Then, softly, "We'll talk later, Theodore." She moved on, already scanning for her next audience. Amelia let out a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. "You're terrifying." He smiled faintly. "You did well." They drifted toward the terrace doors as the room grew louder. Outside, heaters glowed, and the city lights stretched endlessly. The cold air felt like permission to breathe. A small table waited with coffee cups and neatly wrapped biscotti. Amelia reached for one automatically. "Careful," Theodore said. "They're dangerously addictive." She dunked it anyway. "I live on the edge." She caught him smiling at that. "You don't have to keep doing this," he said quietly. "We can end it now. I'll handle the fallout." She looked back through the glass doors, at Margaret, already deep in conversation, at the donors who now smiled at her with borrowed warmth. "No," Amelia said, "I'm tired of stepping aside. One night. I can manage one night." The countdown clock reappeared on the screens inside. 20 minutes. Theodore checked his watch. His bow tie still perfect, his control almost. "Then we should dance," he said, "if people expect it." "I'm terrible," she warned. "Good," he said. "So am I." They moved back into the ballroom as the music softened. His hand settled at her waist. Hers rested on his shoulder. They swayed, not gracefully, not awkwardly. Human. "You're counting," she murmured. "So are you." She laughed, quiet and genuine. Around them, phones lifted again. And from the edge of the room, Margaret Hale typed a message, her smile calm, her eyes sharp. Amelia's phone vibrated in her clutch, one unread message lighting the screen with a subject line that made her stomach drop. "We need to talk about what really happened." Amelia didn't open the message. Not yet. Her phone vibrated once more against the satin lining of her clutch, insistent, like a child tugging at a sleeve during a serious conversation. She kept her smile in place as Theodore guided her through the slow rhythm of the music, her mind racing ahead without permission. "Everything all right?" he asked softly, his mouth close to her ear for appearance's sake. "Yes," she said too quickly. He felt it, the faint stiffening at her waist, the way her fingers tightened at his shoulder. Theodore Kane had negotiated hostile takeovers with less awareness than he brought to that single moment. The song ended. Applause rippled politely. "Coffee?" he suggested, steering them toward a quieter corner before she could object, before we're paraded in front of someone else with opinions. She nodded, grateful. At a small cafe-style station near the back of the ballroom, a young attendant handed them porcelain cups filled with dark roast. Amelia wrapped both hands around hers, inhaling. The smell grounded her. Real, familiar, no headlines attached. She took a sip. "This is surprisingly good," Theodore raised a brow. "I fought for it. Last year they served something that tasted like regret." That pulled a laugh from her. Light. "Needed?" They sat at a small round table, knees almost touching. The city glittered through tall windows behind them. Outside, snow had begun to fall, slow, deliberate flakes that softened the sharp edges of everything. Amelia's gaze drifted to the pendant again. Theodore followed it. "It suits you," he said. "Suits?" "Not because it's pretty, because it looks earned." Her throat tightened. "My grandmother wore it every winter. She said snow teaches patience. It shows up when it's ready, not when you ask." "Smart woman." "She was," Amelia said. "She also said dignity is quiet. You don't defend it loudly. You live it until people have no choice but to see." The words hung between them. The phone vibrated again. This time, Theodore noticed. "Do you want to tell me?" he asked. She hesitated, then reached into her clutch and turned the screen toward him. He read the subject line, his expression sharpening. "Do you know who sent it?" he asked. "Yes," she said. "Evan Brooks, my former supervisor." "The email incident," he said. It wasn't a question. She nodded. He was cleared too, quietly. Promoted, actually. "That's convenient." He always knew how to land, Amelia said. "On other people." Another message followed. Shorter. "They're saying things. You deserve to know." Theodore leaned back, considering. "We have options." "We do?" "Yes?" "One, you ignore it. We keep smiling. Let the clock run out." He paused. "Two, you tell me everything, now." She looked at him, at the man who'd stepped in without asking for her story first, who'd given her back her pendant without a word. "I didn't leak anything," she said. "I flagged a security gap. He told me to let it go. 2 weeks later, donors were furious, and somehow the trail led to my login." "And you didn't defend yourself." "I did," she said. "Once. Loudly. It didn't help." Theodore nodded slowly. Margaret was on the committee that handled that. Amelia's stomach dropped. Of course she was. Across the room, Margaret Hale laughed at something a senator said, her phone tucked discreetly into her hand. Watching. Always watching. A waiter passed with small plates, mini grilled cheese sandwiches, cut neatly into triangles. Amelia hadn't noticed how late it was, how hungry she'd become again. Theodore took 2 plates without comment. She took a bite and nearly groaned. "Okay, that's unfair." "Bread and cheese," he said. "The great equalizer." She smiled, then sobered. "If this comes out tonight, it won't," he said. "Not without my say." "That's not what I meant," she replied. "I don't want protection. I want truth." He studied her. Those two don't always arrive together. The music shifted again, brighter now. The countdown clock flashed 10 minutes. A child, someone's granddaughter, maybe 6 or 7, ran past their table and skidded to a stop, staring openly at them. "You're pretty," the girl said to Amelia. "Are you famous?" Amelia blinked. "No." The girl turned to Theodore. "Is she your girlfriend?" Theodore smiled. "Something like that." The girl frowned, considering. "You look nicer when you smile," she informed him, then ran off before either of them could respond. Amelia burst out laughing. "She just diagnosed you." He shook his head. Children are ruthless. The laughter faded gently, leaving something warmer behind. 5 minutes. The room buzzed louder. People gathered closer to the stage. Phones rose like fireflies. Amelia's phone lit again. This time, the message preview showed more. Margaret knows. She's planning to correct the record. But not in your favor. Amelia felt the color drain from her face. Theodore read it, his jaw set. She's going to spin it, make it look like a misunderstanding, shared blame. And I'll still be the expendable one, Amelia said quietly. He reached across the table, covering her hand with his. No performance now. No audience close enough to matter. Look at me, he said. She did. At midnight, he said, I'm making a statement, public, clear, about us, about you. That could hurt you, she said. I'll survive, he replied, echoing his words from earlier. The question is whether you trust me. The room began the countdown. 10, 9. Margaret stepped closer to the stage, her phone poised. 8. Amelia's heart pounded. 7. She tightened her fingers around the snowflake pendant. 6. Do it, she whispered. 5. Theodore stepped closer, his voice low, urgent, meant only for her. 4. There's one thing, he said. It wasn't part of the deal. 3. She looked up at him. 2. I have to kiss you. 1. As the room erupted in cheers and confetti burst overhead, Theodore leaned in, and Amelia saw Margaret lift her phone, recording everything, just as his lips hovered a breath away from hers. The cheer hit like a wave. Confetti burst overhead, silver and gold raining down as the crowd shouted the new year into being. Glasses clinked, music surged. Someone somewhere yelled, "Kiss?" with delighted authority. Amelia didn't hear any of it. All she saw was Theodore. His face was closer than it had ever been, close enough for her to notice the faint crease beside his mouth. The warmth of his breath, the way his eyes searched hers, not asking permission anymore, but offering something honest. For one suspended second, the world waited. Then he kissed her. It wasn't dramatic. No sweeping dip, no hunger meant to impress. It was careful, intentional. His hand rested at her back, steady and protective, while her fingers curled into the front of his jacket without planning to. The room exploded again. Amelia felt it then, the unmistakable click of cameras, the soft electronic chime of phones capturing proof. Somewhere beyond Theodore's shoulder, Margaret Hale's phone was raised. Her expression perfectly neutral as she recorded. The kiss ended before it could become anything else. Theodore didn't pull away far, just enough to rest his forehead lightly against Amelia's for a beat longer than required. "Still breathing?" he asked softly. She laughed, a little breathless. "Barely?" "Good," he murmured, "because we're not done." He took her hand and turned them toward the crowd before she could ask what he meant. A microphone appeared, offered eagerly by an event coordinator who looked thrilled by the unexpected drama. Theodore accepted it. "Happy New Year," he said. His voice calm, carrying easily. The room quieted. Phone steadied. "I don't usually make announcements like this, but tonight seems appropriate." Amelia felt his thumb brush once over the back of her hand. Reassurance. "This woman," he continued, "is Amelia Frost. She's kind, she's capable, and she's been treated unfairly in the past year." A ripple moved through the room. "I don't like silence when truth is available," Theodore said. "And I don't believe in letting good people carry blame that isn't theirs." Margaret's smile tightened, almost imperceptibly. "I've reviewed the facts," he went on, "and starting tomorrow, the record will reflect them. Fully." The room buzzed again, this time with curiosity edged in something like approval. Amelia's chest felt tight. She hadn't expected this, not like this. Theodore lowered the microphone and handed it back before applause could gather too much momentum. He leaned close to Amelia again. "You okay?" he asked. She nodded. "You just changed my ear in under a minute." "That makes two of us," he said. They slipped away toward the terrace as the crowd reclaimed its party mood. Outside, the cold was sharper now, the snow falling thicker. Amelia let out a long breath, watching it swirl under the lights. "Margaret won't like that," she said. "No," Theodore agreed. "She won't." They stood in silence for a moment. The noise muted behind the glass doors. Amelia reached up, touching her lips without thinking. "That was not in the contract," she said. He smiled, loosening his bow tie at last. "I warned you." A server stepped out onto the terrace, balancing a tray of small bowls, late-night chili, steam rising invitingly. Amelia hadn't realized how late it was, how drained she felt. Theodore took 2 bowls, emergency rations. She accepted one, grateful. The chili was warm and grounding, beans and spice, and something comforting she couldn't quite name. "This is the most surreal meal of my life," she said. "High praise," he replied. "Most people remember their New Year's chili." She glanced at him over the rim of the bowl. "You did that knowing it would tie you to me publicly." "Yes. And you're fine with that." He met her gaze. "I'm fine with the truth." Before she could respond, the terrace door opened again. Margaret Hale stepped out, heels clicking sharply against the stone. She stopped a polite distance away, her smile professional. "Well," she said, "that was quite a moment." Theodore turned calmly. "It was overdue." Margaret's eyes flicked to Amelia. "You're very convincing." "I'm not acting," Amelia replied before she could stop herself. Margaret studied her for a long beat. Then she sighed, a crack in the polish. "Evan is panicking," she said. "He thinks you're going to ruin him." "I don't want to ruin anyone," Amelia said. "I want my name back." Margaret looked at Theodore. "This will complicate things." "Truth tends to," he said, "too." Margaret's gaze softened just a fraction. "You always did choose the hard road." She turned to leave, then paused. "Be careful," she added, not unkindly. "People don't forgive exposure easily." When she was gone, Amelia realized her hands were shaking. Theodore noticed immediately. He set his bowl down and reached for her hands, warming them between his. "You did well," he said. "I'm terrified," she admitted. "That's allowed," he replied. "Courage usually looks like that up close." Inside, the party roared on. Outside, the snow kept falling. Amelia looked down at the snowflake pendant, then back up at Theodore. "What happens tomorrow?" she asked. He didn't answer right away. Instead, his phone vibrated in his pocket. He checked it, his expression shifting. "Tomorrow," he said slowly, "we find out who else has been lying." Amelia's phone buzzed at the same time, this time with a notification already spreading online. CEO's new fiancé at center of old scandal, full story coming soon. Morning arrived without asking permission. Amelia woke to pale winter light spilling across unfamiliar curtains, and the soft hum of traffic far below. For a long, disoriented second, she thought she'd missed something important, an exam, a train, a call from her grandmother that could no longer come. Then memory rushed back in layers, the gala. The kiss, the headline notification glowing on her phone. She sat up quickly, the snowflake pendant sliding cool against her collarbone. She'd slept in it without realizing. Some habits clung harder than logic. Her phone lay face down on the nightstand. She didn't touch it. Instead, she noticed the room. Tasteful, quiet. Not impersonal exactly, but careful. A guest room in Theodore Kane's penthouse, she assumed. The bed was comfortable in a way that suggested it had hosted many thoughtful decisions and very little chaos. A soft knock came at the door. "Yes?" Her voice sounded steadier than she felt. The door opened just enough for Theodore to lean in. He'd traded the tuxedo for dark jeans and a soft gray sweater, hair slightly rumpled, stubble more honest than polished. He looked human. "There's coffee," he said, "and toast, and a very opinionated fruit salad." She smiled despite herself. "That sounds like a threat." "It is. You should come supervise." The kitchen was flooded with light. all glass and clean lines softened by the mess of morning, an open newspaper, 2 mugs, a bowl of fruit that looked like it had lost an argument with a spoon. Amelia slid onto one of the stools at the island. Theodore pushed a mug toward her, black coffee, just how she liked it. She took a careful sip. "I should say thank you for letting me stay." "You shouldn't have gone home alone," he replied. "Not with everything." They didn't need to say the internet out loud. She reached for a slice of toast, spreading butter slowly, deliberately. Ordinary motions felt precious, proof that the world hadn't cracked open overnight. "Did you sleep?" she asked. "A little," he admitted. "Margaret called at 3. Evan texted at 4. My mother left a voicemail asking if she needed to book a venue." Amelia nearly choked on her toast. "Already?" "She's efficient," he said dryly. She laughed, then sobered. "The article's gaining traction. People are choosing sides." "I know." "And you're okay with that?" she asked. "With me being the center of it?" Theodore leaned against the counter, arms folded loosely. "I didn't choose you for silence." That landed gently. Firmly. Her phone buzzed on the island this time, lighting up with a familiar name. Evan Brooks calling. Amelia stared at it. "I can take it," Theodore offered. "No," she said, surprising herself. "I should," she answered, putting it on speaker. "Amelia," Evan's voice came through, smooth but strained. "This has gotten out of hand." "You messaged me," she replied. "You said I deserved to know." "Yes, well, Margaret didn't mean for it to go public like this. We can still manage the narrative." Theodore's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. "Manage it how?" Amelia asked. A pause. "Shared responsibility. A statement about confusion. Poor systems. No villains." Amelia looked at the snowflake pendant resting against her sweater. Her grandmother's voice echoed faintly in memory. "Quiet dignity isn't weakness. It's choice." "No," Amelia said. Evan sighed. "You're being emotional." That did it. "I was emotional when I lost my job," she said evenly. "I'm calm now." Another pause. "You're making powerful enemies." "I already had them," she replied. "I just stopped carrying their story for them." She ended the call before he could respond. Silence settled. Theodore let out a slow breath. "You were very clear." "I'm tired of being convenient," she said. A beat passed. "Good," he said, "because I'm not planning to be either." They finished breakfast quietly, fruit salad that turned out to be excellent despite its attitude, toast crumbs scattered like evidence of something domestic and real. Amelia felt a strange ache in her chest, a longing she didn't want to name yet. Later, as they stood by the window watching the city wake up, Theodore spoke again. "There's a board meeting this afternoon," he said. "Margaret will push back. Hard." "And me?" Amelia asked. "I'd like you there," he said, "but only if you want to be." She considered it, the room, the eyes, the judgment, Then she nodded. "I want to be seen." A small smile curved his mouth. "I thought you might." As if summoned by the words, Theodore's phone chimed. He glanced at the screen, expression shifting. "What is it?" Amelia asked. "An email," he said slowly. "From the Foundation's legal team." He handed her the phone. The subject line read, "New evidence regarding last year's data breach." Amelia's breath caught. Attached beneath it was a single-sentence preview. "We believe the source was misidentified." She looked up at Theodore, hope and fear tangling together. Outside, the snow had stopped falling, but the city felt poised, waiting. As Amelia's phone buzzed again, a notification popped up from a major news outlet. Exclusive: whistleblower claims? CEO interfered in investigation. The headline sat between them like a fragile thing that could still shatter. Amelia read it twice, then a third time, as if repetition might soften the words. Whistleblower claims CEO interfered in investigation. She looked up at Theodore. "That's about you." "Yes," he said calmly, too calmly, "and it's not true." But it sounds true, she said, which is worse. He nodded once. That's how these things work. They didn't move right away. The city outside carried on, buses sighing. A siren somewhere distant, life refusing to pause for reputations under threat. Amelia rubbed her thumb over the snowflake pendant, a habit now grounding herself. You can step back, Theodore said quietly. Right now, I'll tell them the engagement was premature. You won't be blamed for this. The offer was real. She could hear it in his voice. And you? She asked. I'll manage, he said again. That word. Survive. Manage. Always shouldering weight alone. Amelia set the phone down. No. He looked at her sharply. Amelia, you didn't step back last night, she said. You stood there and told the truth, when it would have been easier not to. I won't disappear now just because it's inconvenient. A beat passed. Something unreadable crossed his face. Relief, maybe, or something closer to gratitude. Then we do this properly, he said. The boardroom at Kane Industries was all glass and restraint, long polished table, chairs arranged with careful equality that fooled no one. Coffee waited at each place, untouched, sending up thin trails of steam. Amelia sat beside Theodore, hands folded, posture calm. She'd chosen a simple navy dress, hair pulled back neatly. No armor, just clarity. Margaret Hale sat across from them, composed as ever. Evan Brooks sat 2 seats down. Jaw tight, eyes avoiding Amelia's. The meeting began with pleasantries that fooled no one. Then Margaret leaned forward. Before we discuss quarterly projections, we should address the situation. She gestured lightly, as if dismissing a fly. This article suggests impropriety, Margaret continued. Specifically that Theodore Kane influenced the outcome of an internal investigation to benefit someone personally connected to him. Amelia wasn't personally connected to me at the time, Theodore said evenly, and I didn't influence the investigation. Margaret smiled thinly. Perception matters. Amelia spoke before she could stop herself. So does evidence. Heads turned. Margaret raised a brow. And you have some? Amelia slid a printed packet onto the table. Her hands didn't shake. These are time-stamped emails, system logs, independent audits. They show who accessed donor files and when, and who flagged the breach originally. Evan shifted in his seat. These documents were submitted last year, Amelia continued. They weren't reviewed. Margaret glanced at the papers, then at Evan. Is that true? Evan cleared his throat. There were procedural delays. Delays that cost me my job, Amelia said calmly, and protected someone else's promotion. Silence pressed down. Theodore leaned back slightly, giving her the floor. A small thing, a powerful one. Margaret studied Amelia for a long moment. Why bring this now? Because silence didn't work, Amelia replied, and because dignity isn't something you beg for. It's something you insist on. Something flickered in Margaret's eyes. Recognition, perhaps, or regret. A junior board member spoke up hesitantly. If this is accurate, we may need to issue a correction publicly. Margaret's jaw tightened. That would draw attention. It already has, Theodore said. Coffee went untouched. No one was hungry for pretense. Later, in a quiet side room, Amelia finally let out the breath she'd been holding. Theodore handed her a small paper cup of tea from a nearby station. Chamomile, honey already stirred in. I guessed, he said at her look, you needed something steady. She took a sip. Warmth spread through her chest. Thank you. You were remarkable in there, he said. You didn't flinch. I was terrified, she admitted. That's flinching on the inside, he replied. It counts. She smiled faintly. His phone buzzed. He checked it, then closed his eyes briefly. Margaret stepping back from the committee, temporarily. That's something, Amelia said. It is, he agreed. But there's more. He hesitated. The whistleblower article didn't come from her, or Evan. Amelia frowned. Then who? "The legal team," he said. "Someone leaked selectively. Enough truth to look credible. Enough omission to cause damage." Her stomach sank. "So even justice has enemies." "Yes," he said softly. "Especially justice." They stood there, the hum of the building around them, the future suddenly less clear than it had felt an hour ago. "I don't want to be a liability," Amelia said. "You're not," he replied immediately. "You're a mirror. People don't like what they see." A tray of small sandwiches appeared, someone thoughtful enough to remember lunch. Simple turkey and cheese on soft rolls. Amelia realized she was starving. She took one, biting into it gratefully. Ordinary food, ordinary kindness. "This might be the bravest sandwich I've ever eaten," she said. He laughed, surprising and warm. High praise again? They shared the quiet, the strange intimacy of surviving something together. Then Theodore's phone buzzed again. This time he didn't smile. "What is it?" Amelia asked. He turned the screen toward her. A message from an unknown number. "You think the past is finished? It isn't. Ask your grandmother what she hid." The words blurred. "My grandmother," Amelia whispered. "She's been gone 10 years. Theodore looked at her. Concern sharp. "Do you know what that means?" "No," she said, "but I think someone does." Her fingers closed around the snowflake pendant, tighter than before. Outside the glass walls, clouds rolled in, dark and heavy, as if the city itself were bracing. Amelia's phone rang, an unfamiliar number, and when she answered, a woman's voice said softly, "If you want the truth about your family, meet me tonight." The call ended before Amelia could ask a single question. She stared at her phone, the screen already dark, her reflection faint and uncertain. For a moment, the building around her seemed too quiet, as if the walls themselves were listening. "Tonight?" Theodore said slowly. "That wasn't a suggestion." "No," Amelia replied. "It was a summons." They stood in the side room, the remains of lunch still on the small table between them, crumbs from the bravest sandwich she'd ever eaten, paper cups, a sense that normal life had wandered off without them. "You don't have to go," Theodore said. "Whoever that was is playing with timing. Fear works best when people are tired." Amelia nodded, though her fingers had already found the snowflake pendant, rubbing its edges like a worry stone. "My grandmother didn't hide things," she said. "She was the most honest person I knew." "That doesn't mean someone else wasn't dishonest around her," he replied gently. A beat passed. "I want to go," Amelia said, "but not alone." Theodore didn't hesitate. "Then you won't be." They chose a public place, an old diner on the east side, all chrome trim and fogged windows, the kind that stayed open late because stories liked to gather there. Snow clung to the edges of the sidewalk outside, half melted and stubborn. Inside, the smell of coffee and fried onions wrapped around them like something familiar. A waitress with silver hair and a voice that carried slid menus toward them. "Sit wherever," she said. "Kitchen's still warm." They took a booth near the window. Amelia slipped off her coat, setting her clutch carefully beside her. The pendant rested visibly now, no longer tucked away. Theodore ordered coffee for both of them without asking. She appreciated that. "You come here often?" she asked, trying for lightness. "Only when I need to remember the world doesn't run on boardrooms," he said. She smiled. "That's a very specific coping strategy." The coffee arrived, strong, unapologetic, along with 2 plates of apple pie, already sliced. "We didn't order that," Amelia began. The waitress winked. "You looked like you needed it." Amelia laughed softly. "She's not wrong." They ate in companionable silence for a moment. The pie warm and sweet, cinnamon heavy enough to quiet the nerves. The bell above the door chimed. A woman stepped inside, shaking snow from her coat. Late 60s, perhaps. Dark hair streaked with gray, pulled back neatly. She scanned the room once, then again, until her eyes landed on Amelia. Recognition flared. The woman approached slowly, carefully, as if every step carried weight. "You're Amelia Frost," she said. Amelia stood halfway. Yes? The woman's gaze dropped to the pendant, her breath caught. You're wearing it. Amelia's hand flew instinctively to the snowflake. You knew my grandmother. I did, the woman said. My name is Lillian Harper. Amelia searched her memory. Nothing. Lillian slid into the booth opposite them, folding her hands tightly. I worked with your grandmother years ago, before you were born. Theodore remained quiet, watchful, his presence steady rather than intrusive. What does this have to do with the email scandal? Amelia asked. Indirectly, Lillian said. Everything circles back, eventually. She took a breath. Your grandmother wasn't just a librarian. Amelia blinked. She was. That's what she did. It's what she said she did, Lillian corrected gently. She also kept records, financial ones, for a charitable trust that no longer officially exists. The diner seemed to tilt slightly. She believed in accountability, Lillian went on. She believed money meant for good should reach its destination. And someone disagreed, Theodore said. Lillian nodded. Several someones, powerful ones. Amelia's chest felt tight. Why are you telling me this now? Because that trust is being audited quietly, Lillian said. And your name appeared in a footnote, as next of kin. Amelia shook her head. That doesn't make sense. It will, Lillian said, if the records surface. Amelia looked down at the pendant again. This was just a necklace. No, Lillian said softly. It was a key. Silence fell heavy. You're saying my grandmother hid evidence? Amelia asked. I'm saying she protected it, Lillian replied, until someone worthy came along. Theodore leaned forward. And you think that's Amelia? Lillian met his gaze. I do. The coffee had gone cold. Amelia didn't notice. Why threaten me then? She asked. Why the message? Lillian winced. That wasn't me. Amelia's blood chilled. Then who? The diner door chimed again. This time, Margaret Hale stepped inside. She removed her gloves slowly, eyes finding their table with practiced ease. Well, Margaret said, approaching with a polite smile, this is cozy. Theodore stood. You're a long way from the boardroom. Margaret's gaze flicked to Lillian. You always were terrible at staying hidden. Lillian stiffened. I warned you to leave her family alone. Margaret's eyes softened. Just a little. I didn't start this. You're continuing it, Amelia said, her voice steadier than she felt. Margaret looked at her then, really looked. You don't know what you're holding. I know what it represents, Amelia replied. Truth, Margaret sighed. Truth is expensive. So is silence, Theodore said. Margaret hesitated, something human breaking through the polish. If those records come out, she said quietly, they'll ruin people, some who don't deserve it. And some who do, Amelia said. Margaret's gaze lingered on the pendant one last time. Midnight, she said. That's when the audit files unlock. She turned and left, the bell chiming softly behind her. Amelia sank back into the booth, heart racing. Lillian reached across the table, touching Amelia's hand briefly. Your grandmother would be proud, Amelia swallowed. I wish she were here. Theodore covered Amelia's other hand, anchoring her between past and present. Outside, the snow began to fall again. Amelia's phone lit up with a secure notification, audit files unlocking in 2 hours, and beneath it, a second alert flashed, unauthorized access attempt detected. The diner clock ticked louder than it should have. Amelia stared at her phone, the numbers glowing like a dare. 1 hour, 58 minutes. Unauthorized access attempt detected. That didn't take long, Theodore said quietly. Lillian's mouth tightened. They won't wait. They never do. The waitress returned with a fresh pot of coffee, pausing as she sensed the tension. Refill? She asked gently. Yes, Amelia said, grateful for the interruption. Ordinary kindness still mattered. Maybe it mattered more now. The waitress poured, the dark stream steady and reassuring. Pie's on the house, she added, nodding at Amelia. For courage. Amelia smiled weakly. Thank you. When the woman walked away, Lillian leaned in. We need to assume the files won't stay untouched until midnight. So someone's trying to alter them, Amelia said. Or erase them, Theodore replied. Lillian nodded. Or frame someone else. Amelia's fingers closed around the snowflake pendant again. This thing, how does it unlock anything? Lillian glanced around, then reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a small old-fashioned USB drive. Its metal casing was worn smooth. The pendant isn't digital, she said. It's symbolic. Your grandmother used it as a marker. Anyone who found the physical records would know who they belonged to and who they were meant for. So where are they? Amelia asked. In a safety deposit box, Lillian said, under your grandmother's name and now yours. The words settled slowly, like snow piling on a ledge. I didn't know, Amelia whispered. Of course you didn't, Lillian said. She wanted you to live freely, not guarded by secrets. Theodore checked his watch. We don't have time for a sentimental tour of family history. Lillian gave a tight smile. You never did. Amelia looked between them. You know each other. We worked together, Lillian said, until Margaret decided loyalty was inconvenient. The diner door chimed again. Amelia flinched, but it was only a couple laughing their way in. Cheeks pink from the cold. Life went on, stubborn and unaware. Okay, Amelia said, straightening. What do we do? Theodore met her gaze. We get ahead of it. The bank lobby was quiet in that late-night way. Polished floors, soft lighting, security guards with expressions trained into neutrality. Amelia signed her name with hands that felt steadier than she expected. The safety deposit box slid free with a soft metallic sigh. Inside, a slim leather folder, neatly labeled. No drama, no alarms. Your grandmother was practical, Theodore murmured. Amelia opened the folder carefully. Inside were documents, copies of ledgers, handwritten notes in a looping script she recognized instantly, and a single letter addressed to my Amelia. Her breath caught. She didn't open it yet. Not now. They returned to Theodore's car, the city sliding past in streaks of light. Amelia held the folder on her lap like something fragile and alive. At the penthouse, Theodore brewed tea while Amelia spread the documents across the kitchen island. Chamomile again, honey, familiar choices. This feels strange, she said softly. Being here, doing this. Strange isn't always wrong, he replied. She glanced at him. His jacket was off now, sleeves rolled up. Watch pushed back slightly. Less CEO, more man who stayed up too late, worrying about the right thing to do. The clock ticked toward midnight again, different midnight, heavier. Lillian joined them via secure video call, her face serious but calm. The files unlocking are mirrored, she said. If we upload these now, they'll cross-reference. And if someone's tampered with the originals, Amelia asked. Then the discrepancy becomes the story, Lillian said. Not you. Amelia nodded. Let's do it. They worked quietly, the only sounds the soft tap of keys and the hum of the building. Theodore handed Amelia a small plate at some point, toast with jam, hastily made. You need to eat, he said. She took a bite, surprised by how sweet it tasted. You're very bossy for someone pretending not to be. He smiled faintly. Occupational hazard. As the upload bar crept forward, Amelia's phone buzzed again. A message from Margaret. You don't understand the fallout. Amelia typed back before she could second-guess herself. I understand silence. I'm choosing differently. The upload completed with a quiet chime. For a moment, nothing happened. Then Amelia's phone lit up with notifications, alerts stacking, one after another. Cross-verification successful, Lillian said, reading from her screen. They match. Amelia sagged against the counter, relief flooding through her so quickly it left her dizzy. Theodore moved without thinking, steadying her with a hand at her elbow. She didn't pull away. His touch was grounding, warm. "Easy," he said softly. She looked up at him, eyes bright with unshed tears. "It worked." "Yes," he said, "it did." They stood there, closer than they'd been since the kiss. No cameras, no countdowns, just the quiet aftermath of doing something right. Amelia laughed suddenly, a small, surprised sound. "My grandmother would love this kitchen." "She sounds like a woman with excellent taste," he said. Her laughter faded into something softer. "The kiss?" she said, surprising herself again. "It wasn't just for show." "No," he agreed. "But everything else, us, it started as a lie." "Yes." She searched his face. "I don't want to pretend anymore." The admission hung between them, fragile and brave. Before he could answer, Theodore's phone rang. He glanced at the screen, expression hardening. "It's Margaret," he said. Amelia swallowed. "Answer it." He did, putting it on speaker. Margaret's voice came through, stripped of polish. "You've triggered the release?" "Yes," Theodore said. "You put names at risk," she said. "Including mine." "Then tell the truth," Amelia said quietly. A pause. Then Margaret spoke again, softer. "If I do, there's no going back." "There never is," Amelia replied. The line went dead. Outside, snow fell thick and fast, blanketing the city in white. Amelia looked at Theodore. "What happens now?" He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he reached up and gently touched the snowflake pendant, letting it fall back into place. "Now," he said, "we wait and decide who we want to be when the morning comes." Amelia's phone buzzed with a breaking news alert. Foundation audit exposes decades-long financial cover-up, and beneath it, a second headline appeared, "Resignations expected at highest levels." Morning didn't arrive gently, it arrived with alerts. Amelia woke to the soft vibration of her phone on the nightstand, one notification bleeding into another, until the sound felt like rain against glass. For a moment, she stayed still, eyes closed, breathing in the quiet that hadn't existed for days. Then she opened her eyes and remembered everything. The audit, the uploads, Margaret's call, the snow falling thick enough to soften the city. She reached instinctively for the snowflake pendant. Still there. Cool. Solid. From somewhere down the hall came the faint sound of a kettle. She padded out, wrapped in one of Theodore's sweaters, too big, soft, smelling faintly of cedar and clean laundry. The kitchen was already alive with morning light and news murmuring from a muted television. Theodore stood at the counter, hair still damp from a shower, sleeves rolled up again. 2 plates sat between them. Scrambled eggs, toast, and sliced avocado arranged with unexpected care. "You cook?" she asked, blinking. "I assemble," he corrected. "Cooking implies confidence." She smiled sleepily and slid onto a stool. "It looks hopeful." That was the goal. They ate quietly at first. The eggs were perfect. The toast warm. Simple food, anchoring them in something real while the world recalibrated. On the television, a headline scrolled by. "Former board members resign amid audit findings." Amelia watched it pass, then looked away. "I didn't expect it to move this fast." "The truth rarely waits once it's let out," Theodore said. "People rush to stand on the right side of it." "And Margaret?" He hesitated. "She released a statement at dawn. Full admission. Cooperation promised." Amelia exhaled slowly. "That couldn't have been easy." "No," he said, "but it was necessary." She toyed with the edge of her plate. "I don't feel victorious." "That's normal," he replied. "Justice isn't fireworks, it's balance." She nodded, absorbing that. Her phone buzzed again, this time with a message she hadn't expected. "Unknown. Number. Your grandmother would be proud. I'm sorry it took me so long to be brave." Amelia stared at the screen. That was Margaret, Theodore said gently, seeing her expression. I know, Amelia replied. I don't know how I feel about it. You don't have to decide today, she smiled faintly. You're very good at not pushing. I've learned the hard way, he said. They finished breakfast in companionable quiet. At one point, Amelia laughed softly when Theodore dropped a fork and muttered something deeply un-CEO-like under his breath. That, she said, felt important to witness. Please don't tell anyone, he replied. I have a reputation. Later, as they stood by the window watching the city shake itself awake, Amelia felt the weight of the last weeks begin to shift. Not disappear, but redistribute. I got an email, she said. From my old company, Theodore turned. And? They want to talk, she said publicly, about reinstating my record. Maybe more. That's good, he said. What do you want? She thought about it, about dignity, about choice. I want my name cleared, she said, but I don't want to go back just because it's safer. He nodded. Then don't. She looked at him, really looked. And you? What happens to us now? The question sat between them, no longer hypothetical. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he reached into a drawer and pulled out the leather folder from the night before. He slid something across the counter toward her. The letter. My Amelia. I thought you might want to read it today, he said. She opened it carefully, her grandmother's handwriting instantly familiar. If you're reading this, it means you've learned what it costs to tell the truth. I hope you've also learned what it gives back. Don't let anyone make you smaller to keep themselves comfortable. And don't walk alone if you don't have to. Amelia's eyes burned. She folded the letter and pressed it to her chest. She knew, she whispered. She knew I'd need help. Theodore stepped closer, not touching her yet, giving her space even now. You don't have to walk alone, he said. Not with this. Not with anything. Her heart thudded. This started as a lie, she said again. A useful one. Yes, he said, and somewhere along the way, it stopped feeling like that, he nodded. For me too. She lifted her gaze to his. I don't want a performance. I don't want protection. I want intention. His expression softened. Something resolute settling in. Then, let me be clear, he said. I want you, not as a solution, not as an image, as a partner. If you'll have me. Her breath caught. The city seemed to hush. I will, she said, but slowly, honestly. A smile curved his mouth, unguarded now. That sounds perfect. He reached out then, fingers brushing hers, tentative and sure all at once. She let them entwine, feeling the quiet certainty of the choice. The moment was interrupted by a soft knock at the door. They both blinked, startled. Please tell me you didn't invite a press conference, Amelia murmured. I did not, he said. Frowning, he opened the door. A courier stood there, holding a slim velvet box. For Amelia Frost, the man said. Signature required. Amelia's stomach flipped. Theodore took the box, handed it to her. Do you want to open it? She hesitated, then did. Inside lay a simple ring, not extravagant. White gold. A small snowflake etched delicately on the inside of the band. Her breath caught. It's not, Theodore began quickly, it's not a proposal, not yet. It's a promise, public clarity, private patience. She looked up at him, eyes shining. You thought of everything. Not everything, he said. But I'm learning. Before she could respond, Amelia's phone buzzed again. This time, it was a live news alert. Breaking. Federal inquiry expands. Additional names expected to surface. Her smile faltered. Theodore saw it immediately. What is it? She showed him the screen. He exhaled slowly. Looks like the story isn't done. No, Amelia said quietly. And I think the next part involves someone close to you. As Theodore's phone rang at the same time, his mother's name flashing across the screen, Amelia realized the truth was about to test not just justice, but family loyalty. The phone kept ringing. Theodore stared at the screen as if it might change its mind. His mother's name glowed there, precise, unmistakable, a woman who did nothing without purpose. Amelia watched him, her fingers unconsciously closing around the snowflake pendant. Family. That word had weight. It always did, he answered. Mother. Theodore? Eleanor Kane said, her voice calm, cultured, and very awake for someone calling before 8. I assume you've seen the news. Yes. Good. Then you know why we need to speak. In person. A pause. Before the markets open, Eleanor added. The line went dead. Amelia let out a slow breath. That didn't sound optional. It never is, Theodore said. He rubbed his forehead once, a rare crack in his composure. She doesn't panic. She reorganizes. About what? Amelia asked gently. He met her gaze. About legacy. They dressed quietly. Amelia chose a soft gray coat, understated, and slipped the pendant beneath her sweater this time, not to hide it, but to keep it close. Theodore watched her, saying nothing, as if memorizing the moment before it changed shape. On the way out, he stopped, turned back, and grabbed 2 travel mugs from the counter, filling them with coffee. Eat something too, he said, handing her a wrapped banana and a small packet of almonds. I know that look, she smiled faintly. Is this what partnership looks like? Snacks and crisis? On good days, he replied. Eleanor Kane's townhouse sat on a quiet street lined with bare winter trees and old money discretion. Inside, everything gleamed softly, wood polished by time, not trend. Eleanor waited in the sitting room, seated perfectly upright, a teacup untouched at her side. She rose when they entered. Amelia noted the details automatically, the tailored navy dress, the pearl earrings, the posture that suggested command without needing volume. So, Eleanor said, her gaze flicking briefly to Amelia, then back to her son. This is the woman who set fire to the board. Amelia stiffened, but Eleanor's lips curved. I approve, Eleanor added. The tension in Amelia's chest loosened just a notch. Mother, Theodore said carefully, Amelia isn't responsible, Eleanor finished. No, but she is catalytic. There's a difference. She gestured for them to sit. A tray appeared moments later. Tea, neatly sliced scones, small bowls of jam and clotted cream. The ritual of civility. Amelia accepted a cup, her hand steady. The tea was fragrant, grounding. The inquiry, Eleanor continued, has expanded into areas I warned about years ago, including a trust your grandmother once audited. Amelia's breath caught. You knew her, Amelia said. I knew of her, Eleanor corrected, a principled woman, rare, dangerous to certain systems. She looked directly at Amelia now. You have her backbone. Amelia swallowed. I have her necklace. Eleanor's eyes flicked briefly to the pendant's chain at Amelia's collar. And her timing, it seems. Theodore leaned forward. Mother, if this is about distancing the family, it's about choosing it, Eleanor interrupted. Publicly, or not at all. Silence settled. Eleanor folded her hands. There are names in those files, she said. Friends, former allies, people who helped build this company. And covered for wrongdoing, Amelia said quietly. Yes, Eleanor said, and some who did neither, but will be caught in the collapse. Theodore's jaw tightened. So, what are you asking? Eleanor turned to Amelia. I'm asking whether you intend to release everything. Amelia didn't look at Theodore. She didn't look away either. I intend to release the truth, she said. Without spectacle, without protection for those who don't deserve it. And mercy? Eleanor asked. Amelia considered, for those who come forward willingly. Eleanor studied her for a long moment. Then she nodded once. Very well, she said. Then the Kane family will not interfere? Theodore exhaled, relief and something like pride crossing his face. But, Eleanor added, there will be consequences, including the scrutiny of my own decisions. Amelia met her gaze. I understand. Eleanor reached for her tea at last, taking a small sip. Then, we are aligned. As they stood to leave, Eleanor paused, looking at Theodore and Amelia together. "One more thing," she said. "If you intend to stand beside her publicly, do so with clarity. Ambiguity invites cruelty." Theodore nodded. "I know." Outside, the air felt sharper, cleaner. They walked a block in silence before Amelia spoke. "Your mother is formidable," he smiled faintly. That was her gentle version. They stopped at a small cafe on the corner, the kind that served breakfast all day. Amelia ordered oatmeal with berries. Theodore ordered eggs and toast. Ordinary choices. Anchors. As they waited, Amelia reached across the table and took his hand. "Whatever comes next," she said, "we decide together." He squeezed her fingers. Together! Their food arrived. Steam rose. Life continued. Then Amelia's phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen and felt the blood drain from her face. "What is it?" Theodore asked. She turned the phone toward him. An email subject line stared back at them both. "Regarding Eleanor Kane's role in the trust, confidential testimony attached." Theodore went very still. As Amelia's phone began to ring, this time from an unknown investigative office, she realized the next truth to surface might fracture the very family that had just chosen her. The call came while the oatmeal was still steaming. Amelia stared at the unfamiliar number, her fingers hovering. Theodore didn't urge her. He simply waited, his hand still resting over hers on the cafe table, steady, present. She answered. "Yes," she said quietly. The voice on the other end was professional, measured, an investigator, calm questions. Clear timelines, no accusations yet, just confirmation. Amelia answered honestly, carefully, feeling the strange calm that came when fear had already burned itself out. When the call ended, the cafe felt louder again, cups clinked. Someone laughed near the counter, life unbothered. "They want the letter," Amelia said. "My grandmother's, and the ledger copies," Theodore nodded. "We'll provide them." "And your mother," Amelia added softly. "They're asking about her oversight. Not wrongdoing, decisions." He absorbed that without flinching. Then, "She'll answer." Their food arrived then, as if on cue, oatmeal crowned with berries. Eggs and toast. Simple, warm, grounding. They ate slowly. "I don't want to hurt her," Amelia said. "She stood by me." "She stood by the truth," Theodore replied. "That's not the same as being untouched by it." Amelia nodded. She understood that now. The inquiry unfolded over days, not hours. There were interviews. Documents, long silences followed by decisive movement. News cycles churned, then clarified. Names surfaced. Context followed. Some people apologized. Some didn't. Eleanor Kane testified. She did it plainly, without defensiveness, without drama. She acknowledged what she'd known, what she'd questioned, what she should have pushed harder to expose. "I chose stability over disruption," Eleanor said, "and I was wrong." The admission rippled outward, quiet but seismic. When it was over, Amelia sat beside Theodore in the back of the hearing room, her fingers wrapped around the snowflake pendant. She hadn't worn it openly this time. It rested in her palm instead. Eleanor found them afterward. She looked older, lighter. "You kept your word," Eleanor said to Amelia. "So did you," Amelia replied. Eleanor studied the pendant. "Your grandmother understood something I didn't. That legacy isn't what you protect, it's what you pass forward intact." She turned to Theodore. "Take care with that." "I will," he said. Spring arrived softly, not with fanfare, with small mercies. Amelia's name was publicly cleared, fully, unambiguously. The correction ran longer than the original accusation. It mattered. She declined her old job. Instead, she accepted a role helping build a transparency initiative across nonprofits. Quiet work, Meaningful work. Work that felt like hers. Theodore stepped back from day-to-day leadership at Kane Industries, appointing a new ethics council with real authority. The markets wobbled, then steadied. One evening, weeks later, they stood together in a small garden behind Eleanor's townhouse. Lanterns glowed. A simple dinner sat on the table, roasted vegetables, fresh bread, soup that tasted like patience. Amelia ladled soup into their bowls. "I used to think justice was loud," she said. "Now I think it's just thorough." Theodore smiled and shared. They ate under the open sky, the city humming beyond the hedge. After dinner, Theodore reached into his pocket. Amelia felt her breath catch, not from surprise, but recognition. He didn't kneel. He simply took her hand, placing the ring, the one with the tiny snowflake etched inside, back into her palm. "This time," he said, "I'm not offering clarity for the public. I'm offering a life with patience, with honesty, with you." Tears blurred her vision. "Yes," she said, "I choose you." He slid the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly. They stood there for a moment, foreheads touching, the world wide and gentle again. Amelia reached up and fastened the snowflake pendant around her neck once more. Some things were meant to be carried forward. They married on a quiet afternoon, the kind that didn't ask to be impressive. There was no cathedral, no long aisle, no spectacle arranged for strangers. Instead, there was a small garden just beyond the city. Early spring, pale green everywhere, the air still carrying a trace of winter. Chairs were set in simple rows. Flowers rested in glass jars. Nothing tried too hard. Amelia stood beneath an old oak tree, sunlight filtering through new leaves, wearing a dress that moved easily when she breathed. It wasn't extravagant. It was hers. Around her neck, resting where it always had when she needed courage, was the snowflake pendant. Theodore waited a few steps away. No pacing, no restless glances, just quiet certainty, hands folded loosely in front of him, shoulders relaxed in a way few people had ever seen. When he looked at Amelia, it wasn't with awe or urgency, but recognition, as if he'd already arrived where he was meant to be. Eleanor Kane sat in the front row, composed and serene, her gaze steady. She did not smile often. Today she did. The ceremony was brief, words chosen carefully, promises spoken clearly, not about perfection, not about rescue, but about truth, about staying, about choosing each other even when it was easier not to. When Theodore took Amelia's hands, his thumb brushed lightly against the inside of her wrist, a small, familiar gesture, grounding, real. "I choose you," he said, no flourish, no audience in mind. In quiet mornings and difficult ones, in honesty, in patience. Amelia didn't rush her reply. "I choose you," she said, her voice steady, carrying just enough emotion to remind everyone listening that love didn't need to shout. "Not as an answer to my past, but as a companion to my future." When the ring slid onto her finger, white gold, simple, the tiny snowflake etched inside, it felt less like a beginning and more like a confirmation. Afterward, there was food, always food. A long wooden table waited beneath strings of soft lights, soup served warm, fresh bread torn by hand, plates passed easily, laughter came in waves, unforced and genuine. At one point, Amelia watched Theodore help an elderly aunt to her seat, listening closely as she told a story he'd clearly heard before. He didn't rush her. He never did. Later, when the plates were cleared and the light began to soften, Amelia found Eleanor standing slightly apart, watching the guests with a thoughtful expression. "She would have liked this," Eleanor said quietly. "My grandmother?" Amelia asked. Eleanor nodded. "Yes." She believed the most important things should feel humane. Amelia smiled. "She taught me that dignity lives in the small choices." Eleanor looked at her then, not as a test, not as an evaluation, but as family. Take good care of each other. They did. Not loudly, not for show, just steadily. That evening, after the guests had gone and the garden grew quiet again, Amelia and Theodore walked together beneath the oak tree once more. The lights dimmed, the air cooled. The city waited somewhere beyond the hills. She rested her head against his shoulder. "We didn't plan this part," she said softly. "No," he replied. "We earned it." They stood there a moment longer, neither in a hurry to move on. Some endings didn't close doors. They simply let you rest. Months later, on a quiet morning, Amelia and Theodore walked past a cafe window and caught their reflection. Older than they had been that night, steadier too. She squeezed his hand. "Funny," she said. "It all started with a lie." "And ended with a choice," he replied. They went inside for coffee, sat by the window, shared a pastry, laughed when powdered sugar dusted Theodore's sleeve. Ordinary, earned, and enough. Sometimes dignity isn't reclaimed with noise, but with steadiness. Sometimes love doesn't arrive early, but it arrives certain, and sometimes the truth waits for the right hands to carry it forward. What would you have done in Amelia's place? If this story moved you, tell me, how would you rate it from 0 to 10? Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share your thoughts below. Thank you for listening. See you in the next story.